What is up, my liches, witches, and sexy bitches? We are back with part 2. Let's go. I would like to preface beforehand that this will contain spoilers within the campaign of Light of Xaryxis, so if you were planning on being a player in a campaign with this module, you have been warned. Just to recap, my name is Preston Hughes. I have 3 players, Bree, Jason, and Kat. Bree will be playing a Thrycreen named Meek, and Jason will be playing a dwarf named Red, and Kat will be playing an astral elf named Astra. I will be actually reading through the module, Light of Xaryxis, to remind myself what the party was doing, so let's get into it. So the module is divided into 4 parts. We have Seeds of Destruction, Terrors of the Void, Chaos and Doomspace, and Saviors of the Multiverse. So I'm going to be going through each part and highlight some of the biggest parts of what the party was doing. Now, the party starts off on the Radiant Citadel, and they're in a tavern called the Stinky Pinky. They're getting to know each other, and they hear bustles in the street, and then a crystal vine shatters through the tavern, destroying it. Now, the party goes outside to investigate, only to find that the Auroral Diamond, the center of the Radiant Citadel, is being attacked by an unknown crystalline form. Now, when they discover this, monsters start erupting out of the ground, made out of the same crystalline material as these crystal vines that are attacking the Radiant Citadel. These creatures are known as astral blights, and the party kills about 10 of them. Now, when they were leaving the Stinky Pinky, they were approached by a sailor who said, in the midst of all of this danger, it's probably a good time to leave. If you have nowhere else to go, meet me on my ship. So the party heads towards the docks. So when they get down to the docks, they see hundreds of people trying to flee the Radiant Citadel from all of these monsters. So the sailor that invited the party to come down to the docks introduces herself as Captain Sartell, the captain of a ship called the Moon Dancer. It's a space galleon. Now, there's a verbal encounter with this guy named Travis and his thugs who is trying to take the Moon Dancer away from Captain Sartell to escape the Radiant Citadel, but everything works out fine. Then Captain Sartell and the party hop on the Moon Dancer and they take off into the reaches of space. After that, we get into Chapter 2, Attack of the Star Moth. So the party is hanging out on the Moon Dancer, getting to know some of the memorable NPCs. One of the most memorable NPCs of this entire campaign is a flump named Flapjack. He acts as the Spelljammer, or the wheelman, for the Moon Dancer. Now, Captain Sartell tells the party that they're heading to a place called the Rock of Brawl, but before they can get there, they are attacked by an astral elven ship called the Dark Star. We get some ship-to-ship combat, they slay some astral elves, but they keep one alive for questioning. During interrogation, they learn that the Xaryxian Empire, aka the Astral Elves, are dropping these astral seeds on neighboring worlds to harvest the energy of those worlds. That is what has attacked the Radiant Citadel. Now, I'm not completely sure if the party had let this astral elf go or if they murdered him, so we can leave that up to your imagination. After that encounter, that's the end of this chapter, but they do see a nautiloid ship in the distance. Nautiloid ships normally are the vessels of mind flayers. When the party approaches the nautiloid, they realize that this ship is actually a derelict. After realizing that the ship is no longer running, the party decides to hop on the ship, investigate, and possibly scavenge anything off of this nautiloid. Through investigation, they find a human that's still alive, named Benotto Kralazar. Now, Benotto tells the party that he is the captain of this vessel, the Nautiloid, and that his ship had been attacked by Neogi pirates. Benotto begs for the party's help because apparently some of his crew are still alive on this ship. Now, the party investigates the rest of the ship, and Benotto is following them. The party ends up fighting an Athalgu, a Quaggoth, along with 4 Surlons, and when they fight those 4 Surlons, Benotto reveals himself to be a Sauron ringer. So the party kills him as well. After all the monsters are dealt with, the party's searching through the entire ship. Red finds a spelljamming helm, and while Meek has been going through the chambers, he finds a giant space hamster. Bree pulls off a legendary animal handling roll. I think she rolled a nat 20 on this, so for the rest of the campaign, this giant space hamster, which we have now named Hamske, will follow Meek around no matter what. After the ship's been investigated, Red finding a spelljamming helm, Meek finding a giant space hamster, they hop back onto the Moon Dancer, only to find out that their ship's about to be attacked by Neogi pirates. And that's the end of that chapter because this module freaking loves cliffhangers. And because I disagreed with the module, I actually ended up having my party go through combat because they're supposed to get rescued right at this moment, and I'm like, no, we're not doing that. So they ended up fighting 8 Neogi and 2 Umber Hulks. After that, 2 space galleons just roll up and start hammering with mangonels and ballista on this Neogi Night Spider. One of the captains introduces himself as Commander Darvik, who is the captain of the Incorrigible, and offers to escort the party and the rest of the Moon Dancer back to the Rock of Brawl. And here we get to Part 2, Terrors of the Void. The Moondancer arrives on the Rock of Brawl, and before Captain Sartell and Flapjack part ways with the party, Captain Sartell gives them this following information. I know someone who can help you. There's a Gif named Commodore Crux, and you can probably find him at the Happy Beholder, which is a tavern within the Rock of Brawl. Crux has dealt with the Astral Elves before, and I think he would aid your cause. So the party naturally runs to the tavern as fast as they can. Not for the adventure, but for the booze. They arrive at the Happy Beholder, and here arrives one of my favorite NPCs of the entire campaign. He is a giant beholder named Large Luigi, who is the bartender and proprietor of the Happy Beholder. Now, the party approaches Large Luigi and asks for Commodore Crux, so Luigi points with one of his eye stalks to a Gif, a giant hippo man who's sitting in the corner, who is also being nestled by a small bird owned by Large Luigi. And naturally, my party now has renamed that bird Small Luigi. The party ends up drinking with Crux, having a great time, not really getting into any of the problems of the world, they're just drinking. At Astra, Red, Meek, and Olus are going shot for shot with Crux all night. They're having a great time. They get to know Commodore Crux a bit more, along with Large Luigi, and a few weird things end up happening that night. So Olus sees another plasmoid in the tavern. They approach each other, and then they end up in the throes of passion on the tavern floor, which they're plasmoids, so it just looks like a giant puddle. Afterwards, they go on their ways, but then one of them, I think it was Olus, splits into two, and then a baby plasmoid is born. I only bring this up because it's going to be really important later. Anyways, so the party tells Commodore Crux about what's going on with the Radiant Citadel and what the Astral Elves are doing, and then Commodore Crux gets really quiet. He says, hey, meet me back on my ship. We'll talk about it there. Apparently, Astral Elves have been scouting out the Rock of Brawl and spying on anybody who could possibly undermine their plans. There, they follow Commodore Crux all the way from the Happy Beholder to the docks, and then they see his ship, which is a living ship called the Second Wind. On his ship, they meet two people, a tiefling warlock named Fel Ardra and his first mate, Mr. Flinch. Now, Fel has been renting the Second Wind from Commodore Crux to use for piracy. So Commodore Crux needs to use his ship immediately, but Fel has already paid for it, and Commodore Crux doesn't have the money to pay her back for the time that she used to rent the Second Wind. So through the aspirations of a horny rogue, some false promises, and a few infernal contracts later, they just kidnap Fel, like Red hops on the Spelljammer helm, and then just takes off while she's on the boat. So, yeah. And that is what we call superior role-playing. You just stall until the dwarf does something fucking stupid. Yeah. So anyways, they take off into the reaches of wildspace with their new captive, and they bump into a Rygar, who is piloting an aesthetic. The aesthetic attaches to the ship, and the Rygar introduces himself as Hastane, who is an enemy to Commodore Crux and an ally to the Xaryxian Empire. Needless to say, combat ensues. The party wipes the floor with this guy, and as he tries to dimension door away, Ad Astra throws a dagger straight into his chest, and he falls on his ship through the dimension door, and then combat was over. Now, I didn't realize how long this video was going to be, so I'm going to cut it off here, and then I will finish the rest of the Light of Xaryxis story on the next video. Thank you for watching, and remember, cast Tiny Hut in the middle of dungeons just because it annoys your DM. Take it easy.